Hey guys, my name is Nick. I'm one of the marketing coaches for STA. And in this video, I'm gonna go over exactly what to do once you've initially launched your ads. So this video is specifically for you if you've already launched your ads and you're wondering, okay, now what? Like what's working, what's not working, what do I do now? This video is specifically for you if you're in that scenario, okay? So the first thing here is what to do right after you've launched your ads. So right after you've launched your ads, you want to make sure you set up your master tracking sheet. And I'll pull this up here so you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's also linked on the doc right here. This is where you're going to fill in your data every day to keep track of trends, what's improving, what's going down, what's happening. There's two different ones that you're going to want to use here. If you're running a DM, an Instagram DM funnel, you're going to use this one right here. Okay, and if you're using a VSL call funnel or an application funnel or a lead form funnel, you're going to use this one down here. This is STA FB metrics. Okay, now one caveat here just to make sure everyone understands, you only are going to fill in the white and blue boxes, the white and blue cells. Everything in gray auto-populates with a formula based on these other metrics here, okay? And one other nuance, if you are running the lead form or application funnel, you're gonna skip leads on this tracking sheet and just do applications, okay? So leads are right here. If you're doing the lead form funnel or an application funnel without an opt-in, you're just gonna use application, okay? Because that's the point at which someone becomes a lead, is through the lead form application or the application on your landing page if you're doing the application funnel, okay? So you're gonna wanna fill that data out every single day so you have all those metrics available to look at and audit. And then what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna start attending the SDA ad support calls. Now, there's a beginner ads call and there's an advanced ads call that you'll see under the STA calendar. With where you're at right now, you're gonna attend the beginner ads calls, which is for people that are spending less than $10,000 a month. And that's gonna be you if you just launched your ads initially. Okay, so on the calendar, you'll see advanced ad calls for people spending over $10,000 a month on ads. And you will see beginner ads calls for people that are spending less than $10,000 a month. Okay, you're gonna attend the beginner ads calls to start with where you're at right now, okay? Second, how to know if your ads are performing well. We get this a lot on the group calls. People that are, that recently launched their ads, they ask, well, can you look at my ads? I just don't know if they're doing well or not. Okay, so if that's you, then here's some beginner metrics to look at, okay? If you have a B2C offer, you generally want to have less than a $300 cost per booked call, okay? If you have a B2B offer, you generally want to have a less than a $400 cost per booked call, okay? Now, there is a little bit of nuance for B2B because the size of companies and the size of the market for B2B can be wildly different. So in some cases, you can have a much higher cost per call and be fine. If you're selling more corporate B2B or just higher end B2B that has a smaller, where you have a higher ticket price point, and if it's a smaller market. So there is a little bit of nuance. Just default to asking your AM what to look for based on your specific offer. Okay, but this is kind of a benchmark to look at, okay? Once your ads are running for a week or so, what you're gonna wanna do is fill out this information that I've listed right here on this training sheet and bring it to your account manager and ask them, based on this data, what's best next step, so that you can't audit what's going on if the ads are working well. You can't audit the situation if you don't have clear data on what's going on, okay? So fill that out, bring it to your account manager, and then they'll be able to help you diagnose what to do next. Now, if you have a winning ad, you're gonna be asking, well, what do I do if I have a winning ad? Like, do I scale it? Do I just keep spending the same amount? Like, what do I do, right? So first things first, we want to define what is a winning ad, okay? And I've defined it here in a few different ways. Number one, your cost per qualified booked call is within KPI. So go to your account manager and have a discussion about what is a good cost per qualified call that we should be looking for. And if your ad is consistently getting you calls at or well within that KPI, that's a sign you have a winning ad, okay? Another metric to look for is over a consistent time frame, are you closing deals at least a 2 to 3x cash ROAS? Generally speaking, you're not going to want to scale your ad spend until you have some cash flow coming in from closed deals. And so these are two main things that you want to look for, right? Once you've consistently started closing a handful of deals at a 2 to 3x cash ROAS on the front end, then I would start scaling spend, and I'll get to that in a second here, okay? One last thing to keep in mind is you want to make sure that your marketing metrics are generally consistent, right? So if you have a good cost per booked call the first 3 days of a campaign and you happen to close 2 deals, and then your marketing metrics all of a sudden, start inflating, out of control, then we don't really want to scale that ad spend if those leading indicator metrics don't stay relatively consistent. And so the question is, if you do have a winning ad, right? Well, what do we do to actually start scaling the budget? Do we scale the budget at all? And if we do that, what is that budget? What should that budget be? Okay. And the answer is, it depends on what your bandwidth is and what is your spending tolerance. So for example, if you have more room on your calendar to take more calls and your sales team you as a sales team have more bandwidth to take more volume, then, and you meet this criteria here and you've closed some deals and you're cash positive, then yes, you should scale spend. Okay, so the question is, what is your new budget? Okay, your new budget depends on, number one, your bandwidth, like I just said, and two, your spending tolerance. Okay, when I say your bandwidth, what do I mean? Your bandwidth means how many more calls can you take per day? So if you're taking 3 calls per day right now based on how much you're spending, and you can take 6 calls, then you should double your spend, right? As long as you are willing to spend double, right? If you're taking just 1 to 2 calls a day right now, and you can take 6 calls, then you should probably triple your spend. Now, if your bandwidth is restricted and you cannot take more calls, and let's say it's just you that's taking calls right now, sales calls to close deals, then if we want to scale, we have to get some more closers in the door, right? You're going to have to probably ramp 1 or 2 closers so that you can scale ad spend so you can take more calls. Because right now, if you're maxed out, even at your low ad spend, then we can't scale ad spend. Okay, so it depends on that situation. But again, if you have the ability to take more calls, then you're going to want to scale your spend depending on how much more bandwidth you have. Again, if you're taking 2 calls right now, you could take 6 calls max per day, scale your spend by 3x. And I'll explain in a second, in a few minutes, how to do that. Okay, and just to reiterate, you're always going to want to default to asking your account manager so that you can be certain that what move you're making is a good move for you at that moment in time. Now, what do you do if you have a losing ad? Okay, so first, again, let's define what is a losing ad. A losing ad is basically when an ad is producing a cost per qualified booked call that is out of your KPI after you've spent at least 3 to 5x your target cost per booked call. So for example, if your target cost per booked call is $200, just as an example, okay, and you've spent at least $600 to $1,000, okay, and your cost per call is $350 or $400, for example. Okay, that's the first sign that you have a losing ad. Okay. Now, the second sign that you have a losing ad is generally if your ad is not producing closed deals. Now, the tough thing about doing high ticket with call funnels when you're running paid ads is you can judge your ad based on front end marketing metrics, aka your cost per booked call. You can also judge your campaign based on your cost per customer that you acquire, aka CPA, or your ROAS, which is return on ad spend. Okay. But you can't judge an ad campaign just based on ROAS or CPA if you've only spent $1,000, because sales and closing is also a really big factor in your CPA and how much ROAS you're going to hit with that campaign, right? Meaning, like, if you've only spent $600 to $1,000, you've likely not even spent enough to even judge how many deals you can close based on this. Okay, and so at this stage that you're in when you just launch ads, you mainly just want to judge your campaign based on your cost per qualified call booked metric, like I said up here. Okay, and then once you've spent on a campaign for a longer period of time, like for example 30 days, for example, that's when you can start to make more higher level decisions on the campaign based on return on ad spend and your CPA, because it's on a longer time horizon where you've given enough time to pass to see how well has this panned out across your sales and closing ability and maybe some other closers' ability, because that'll really dictate your ROAS and CPA, and your marketing metrics don't have any control over that. And so it's not always a good indicator of whether a campaign's working or not if you have to improve your closing skills, for example, right? So again, if you're unsure, always just check with your account manager and or just join the beginner group calls, the ad support calls, and ask us and get clarity, and just default to going to your account manager and having that discussion with them so that you can be sure. Okay, so that is how to manage your ads once you've initially launched your ads. After this video, go to the next one and watch on what to do for scaling your ads.